The workshop beneath the brownstone on Beacon Hill had always carried the sharp tang of brass filings mixed with the faint, nutty aroma of whale oil lubricant and the lingering ghost of Elise's lavender soap that clung to the air like a half-remembered melody, but for the past 4 years it had thickened into a shroud of grief so dense that every breath tasted of dust and loss, the silence broken only by the occasional tick of a forgotten escapement or the soft creak of the floorboards settling. Under the weight of absence, ever since Elise died in the cardiac ward of Brigham and Women's Hospital at precisely 3:17 p.m. on a rain-slicked Thursday in October 2021, the wall clock in her room frozen at that exact second because the nurse, overwhelmed by the code blue and the frantic compressions and the flat line that refused to rise, simply forgot to restart it after the paddles failed and the doctor called time, and I never allowed anyone to touch that clock again, not the janitor, not the chaplain, not even the orderly who wheeled her body away, for that frozen 3:17 became my rosary, my metronome of mourning, the moment when the gears of my world ground to a halt. I am Vincent Moreau, Vinny to the dwindling circle of colleagues who still recall me as the master clockmaker who personally regulated the Patek Philippe caliber 89 for its triumphant 1989 unveiling in Geneva, my hands once insured for 3 million Swiss francs by the Compagnie Genevoise against the perils of tremor or accident. Hands that had coaxed life from the most intricate complications known to horology, and now, at 76, those same hands are gnarled knots of arthritis and sorrow. Knuckles swollen like overwound mainsprings, trembling when I attempt to wind even the simplest key, yet I persist in the 4-story townhouse Elise and I purchased in 1972 with the proceeds from restoring a 1735 Thomas Tompion bracket clock for a Saudi prince who paid in gold bullion, a townhouse where we raised no children of our blood. For our marriage was a deliberate duet of craft and devotion rather than the clamor of family, but instead we nurtured thousands upon thousands of gears. Mainsprings, escapements, balance wheels, and ruby pallets, the basement workshop our womb of creation, the attic our reliquary of ticking memories where every box held a story of auctions won, deadlines met, and nights spent under loop light until dawn painted the Charles River in rose. Then came Liam Moreau, 31. My grandson from our son Julian, who had been taken from us in a motorcycle wreck on the Massachusetts Turnpike in 2015 at the age of 29, his helmet cracked open like a cheap watch case on the asphalt, the police report still folded in my wallet with its clinical description of traumatic brain injury and instantaneous death, a report I reread on the anniversaries because the words were the only thing left of him, and Liam arrived unannounced on a sweltering July afternoon in 2022. His rented U-Haul double-parked outside with hazard lights blinking like a faulty repeater, hauling in a ring light the size of a satellite dish, crates of LED panels that hummed like angry bees, and a girlfriend named Chloe who spoke exclusively in hashtags and influencer jargon, declaring with a hug that smelled of energy drinks and ambition that the algorithm was a merciless beast these days, that he just needed a quiet corner in Pop's vintage vibe house to film his tick or flip TikTok series, flipping thrift store clocks and watches for views and cash, 6 months at most, promise on Julian's memory, and I nodded through the fog of grief, thinking perhaps the noise of youth might drown the silence Elise left behind. 6 months stretched into 1,278 days, a slow erosion of boundaries I watched with the numb detachment of a man who has already lost everything worth keeping, rent never mentioned amid the chaos of his lease on my life, gratitude as rare as a perfect ruby palette in a sea of steel, and he called me Pops, the word tossed out like a stage cue rather than an endearment, treating me as a background prop in his meticulously lit vertical videos, his laughter booming through the halls at 3 a.m. while I lay awake in the master bedroom, the sheets cold and undisturbed on Elise's side, the mattress still holding the faint imprint of her body as if she might return any moment to warm it. Liam transformed the sacred workshop into a neon-lit studio, the scarred oak benches now draped in seamless white backdrops that reflected the LED glare like artificial snow, the walls lined with pegboards of brass pinions and jewelers' files replaced by shelves of prop clocks bought for pennies at estate sales in Quincy, and Elise's beloved china cabinet, filled with porcelain figurines of famous horologists like Harrison and Breguet, became a merch shelf for unboxing limited edition hoodies. Emblazoned with his logo, a cartoon gear flipping a smartwatch. Chloe, with her perpetual ring light tan and talk of engagement funnels, lounged on the velvet chaise in the parlor, editing thumbnails on her laptop while Liam filmed, his voice a practiced baritone, "Yo fam, Today's flip is this dusty old mantle clock, total boomer relic, but watch me turn it into cyberpunk drip with some RGB mods. I would retreat to the kitchen, hands clasped around a mug of black coffee that had long gone cold. Listening to the bass thrum through the floorboards like a malfunctioning escapement, wondering if Julian's ghost could hear it from wherever restless spirits go, wondering if he would approve of the grandson who bore his eyes but none of his quiet diligence. At first I tried to bridge the widening chasm, to weave Liam into the fragile fabric of my days with the tentative threads of family legacy, offering him Elisa's 1952 Jaeger-LeCoultre Atmos clock that breathed with the air pressure changes like a living thing, its torsion pendulum swinging for decades without winding. He glanced at it under the ring light, his perfectly groomed beard twitching, and dismissed it as analog's dead. Pops, smartwatches track REM sleep and heart rate variability now. Who needs perpetual motion when you've got lithium-ion? I cooked her coq au vin one Sunday, the chicken slow-braised in burgundy until the meat fell from the bone like secrets, the sauce rich with pearl onions and the memory of our honeymoon in Dijon where we danced under vineyard lanterns. He poked at it with a fork, nose wrinkling under his LED glow, declaring it keto sabotage before excusing himself to film a carnivore challenge video, devouring ribeyes under the studio lights while Chloe livestreamed the mukbang. I even mentioned the attic once, early in his stay, when I caught him eyeing the pull-down stairs with that appraiser's gleam, saying up there was full of old junk, Julian's childhood drawings tucked into gearboxes, some balance wheels yellowed as autumn leaves, a few pieces from the collection I had squirreled away for rainy days, but he waved it off as my overflow merch now. Pops, don't touch. You'll sneeze on the limited drops and tank the resale value, and so I let the intrusions accumulate like brass shavings on the workshop floor, let his size 13 sneakers creak up those attic stairs at 3 a.m. when the city slept under a blanket of stars, let his phone flashlight sweep the dust motes into golden halos while he whispered to Chloe about Chrono 24 flips and vintage clout for the timeline, let his confidence swell like an overwound mainspring vibrating against its barrel until the tension became unbearable, until the day he DM'd me a blurry photo from the attic gloom, the clock half buried under Julian's old Hot Wheels collection, its silver case tarnished, hands frozen at 3:17, crystal etched with a hairline crack. I'd scribed myself with a diamond file, engraving faded but legible, Breguet subscription 1698, and asked if he could flip the crusty gold ticker unless I wanted it back, his emoji a money bag that twisted like a knife in the wound Elise left. I waited 17 minutes in the kitchen, hands shaking over the cold rim of my coffee mug, the liquid long steeped to bitterness, staring at the screen as if it held Julian's verdict or Elisa's forgiveness, before typing back that Elisa's granddad had carried it through the trenches or some such lie, that it stopped in 21 after a drop. Flip it, son, buy yourself something loud that beeps and buzzes, and hit send with a finger that felt foreign, heavy with the weight of what was to come, while inside my chest the old balance wheel held, breath suspended in the dead beat, and I was already dialing Pierre Laurent, my old friend from the Swiss Guard Horology Division, now 79 and puttering in a chalet in Fribourg, his voice crackling over the line like a balance staff under strain, confirming. The micro GPS tag embedded in the case back of the decoy, #1698BM12, was live and pinging steadily toward the ChronoCon auction hall in South Boston, the signal strong as a striking hammer on a repeater gong. The clock in the attic had been a perfect forgery, crafted by me in 2020 for $1,600 from Henri Dubois, a retired Breguet technician in Le Local whose hands bore the scars of assembling grande complications for sheiks and oligarchs, its galoche dial hand turned to mimic the sunburst of 1698, the ruby cylinder escapement polished to a mirror that reflected lies, but it was only a shadow of the real 1698 Breguet subscription pocket clock, serial 1698BM12, acquired in 1970. For $22,000 from a bankrupt Parisian count who pawned it for a month's cognac in a Montmartre café, and the true instrument rested safe in a bank vault in Geneva, on indefinite deposit under my name since 2021, its appraisal climbing to $12.7 million after a Christie's Geneva sale shattered records for pre-subscription Breguets, whispers from the auction rooms reaching me like distant chimes. Elisa's last words to me, whispered through the oxygen mask 6 weeks before the heart attack claimed her like a sudden silence in a symphony, had been murmured over a half-finished balance wheel, her breath warm against my ear. let anyone who ever tries to steal our time take the decoy, Vinny, let the silence wind them down, for in silence lies the truest striking, the space where the soul hears what the hammer cannot play. At precisely 11 a.m. on that overcast Tuesday, with the harbor shrouded in fog beyond the convention center windows, Liam's Chronocon booth glowed like a false dawn under custom gear-shaped LED lights that cast elongated shadows across the carpeted floor. 4.1 million live viewers tuned in from bedrooms and boardrooms worldwide to his Tick or Flip series, where he restored thrift store clocks with spray paint and RGB mods, turning a $10 alarm into cyberpunk nightstand flex. For a quick $2,000 flip, and he held up the tarnished Breguet with a theatrical laugh that echoed off the high ceilings, calling it total boomer core, fam, like something Pops dug out of his crypt, starting the bid at $500 with a flourish of his tattooed wrist, watching the numbers climb in green digits, 900, 1,800, 3,200, 6,500. As the chat scrolled in a frenzy of emojis and caps lock hysteria, bro that's a Breguet subscription face screaming in fear check the dial, $6.5K already? That's a 12 million piece homie, Liam just robbed his grandpa live LMAO hashtag family tick drama, the energy building like a rising escapement until the bid hit 11.9 million from an anonymous bidder in Singapore, Liam's face flushing with triumph, his free hand flipping his man bun for the camera as he mimed winding an invisible key, whispering to the lens that this heirloom was about to fund his first physical watch brand, until suddenly the double doors at the far end of the hall burst open with the authority of a repeater strike at 1:15, and 12 agents from the FBI's Antiquities Unit poured in like a storm of Navy windbreakers and glinting badges, their vests emblazoned with yellow letters that screamed Federal Agent across the fluorescent glare, clearing gawking dealers with firm elbows while Agent Marcus Reyes, 45, ex-Marine with a crew cut sharper than a case knife, whose own grandfather's watch had been stolen in a 2018 heist, took point, his handheld GPS scanner already humming as he zeroed in on the booth, the device beeping a shrill confirmation of the serial match to the stolen item reported by Vincent Moreau in 2021, his voice cutting through the chaos like a perfect deadbeat escapement. Liam Moreau, step away from the clock immediately, hands visible. This is registered stolen cultural property under the National Stolen Property Act. Interpol Red Notice active. The booth fell into stunned silence, bids frozen on the overhead screen at 11.9,300,000, Liam's phone propped on its carbon fiber gimbal capturing the pandemonium in unflinching 4K as the chat detonated into biblical frenzy. FBI? This is Oscar-worthy. Pop set him up with a fake Breguet skull hashtag Pop's Revenge, hashtag Liam arrest trending #1, by TikTok, Liam stammering in a voice that cracked like cheap brass, stolen? From who? This is family stuff. Pop said it was trash, check the DMs, it's a misunderstanding. But Agent Reyes was already reciting the Miranda rights with the clipped precision of a quarter repeater at 15 minutes, the scanner's green light sealing his fate as the stream glitched to black for a heartbeat before resuming in chaotic portrait mode. Viewer count spiking to 3.1 million as hashtag Pop's Revenge rocketed to #1 worldwide, memes spawning in real time, photoshopped images of me in my 1950s Patek suit wielding a loop like a revolver, Liam as a cartoon thief with a sack marked $. By 2 p.m., the fog had lifted slightly over the harbor, casting a pallid light through the workshop windows where I sat winding Elisa's Atmos clock that breathed with the barometric changes, its torsion pendulum swinging in eternal motion without key or battery, when the front door slammed with the fury of a slammed repeater case, and Liam stormed in, his ankle monitor blinking like a faulty minute repeater on his wrist, his once immaculate merch hoodie inside out, Tick or Flip logo reversed too. Pilf ROKCIT, eyes wild as a storm-tossed balance wheel, Chloe vanished into the ether of unanswered calls, his manager's text burning on his screen that all brand deals were paused indefinitely pending investigation, his face a mask of smeared beard oil and raw betrayal as he screamed, Pops, what the hell did you do to me? You set me up like some mark in your dusty old shop, and I didn't look up from the key, my voice soft as a pianissimo, asking what did you do, son, before sliding the manila folder across the scarred workbench, its contents spilling slightly, photos clipped from security cams at other retirees' homes, screenshots of Chrono 24 listings with geotags matching his content shoots, bank wires traced through Panama shells showing $487,000 in laundered sales from 6 other victims. Mrs. Walsh's 1889 Waltham pocket watch vanishing after Liam's railroad relic tour in Southey. Mr. Park's 1923 Omega Marine chronometer lifted during a dive watch deep dive in Dorchester, each theft a cog in the machine he'd built under the guise of helpful hauls. He snatched the folder, pages fanning like a discordant striking train, his eyes widening at the Discord logs to Clock Phantom 77, the hidden GoPro feeds from my own workshop safe, the Tor browser history on my router that Pierre had mirrored remotely, and when the doorbell rang sharp as a hammer strike, the FBI agents, Reyes leading with warrant in hand, swept through like a full chime sequence, finding in the workshop 52 stolen clocks nestled in cases like sleeping mechanisms, a concealed GoPro lens trained on the combination lock during his prop unboxings, a burner phone tucked in his ring light bag with texts to the fence in Liechtenstein, Agent Reyes pausing amid the chaos to nod at me with a respect that pierced the grief, saying your decoy gave us the probable cause we chased for 18 months, Mr. Moreau, it's not just a clock, it's a requiem for every senior he fleeced. Liam's last words as they cuffed him, voice breaking like a frayed mainspring, were that I'd killed his future, Pops, for a stupid broken ticker that wasn't even real, and I closed the door softly behind them, the latch clicking like the final deadbeat in a score, whispering to the empty air that no, son, your greed did, the silence now thicker, heavier, but somehow cleaner, as if the house could finally tick without the neon hum. Court convened 8 weeks later under a January sky heavy with snow that fell like unshed tears on the courthouse steps in downtown Boston, Liam shuffling into the federal courtroom in an orange jumpsuit that clashed grotesquely with his faded man bun, his once lustrous beard trimmed prison short, the gallery packed with horology nerds in tweed who'd heard whispers of the Breguet scandal, true crime podcasters live tweeting from the back row, local reporters from the Herald sketching quick portraits for the Metro page, and me, taking the stand in my 1950s Patek Philippe tailor-made suit of charcoal wool that still draped my frame like a second skin, the fabric whispering against the wood as I raised my right hand and swore on a Bible whose pages smelled faintly of dust and devotion. The prosecutor, a sharp-featured woman named Sophia Chen with a voice like a cello's low register, approached with measured steps, asking if I had given Liam permission to remove the clock from the premises, and I testified no, not in any meaningful sense, that his DM that Tuesday morning at 8:42 had been the bait I allowed him to swallow, replying yes to the auction with full knowledge it was the decoy, my voice steady despite the tremor and my hands hidden in my lap, explaining how Elise had taught me to watch and wait like a deadbeat escapement, holding the tension until the mechanism released it, letting the silence build the power that greed could not withstand. Chen pressed on the other victims, and I described the patterns Pierre had uncovered, the content shoots that masked midnight lifts, Mrs. Walsh and her Southey triple-decker, tearfully recounting how Liam's railroad relic video had left her Waltham's case empty by dawn, Mr. Park's Omega Marine gone after a dive watch tutorial that filmed the safe under the guise of lighting tests, and when cross-examination came, Liam's public defender, a harried man with sweat beading on his brow, accused me of resentment, of planting the fake to evict him from my shrine. I met his eyes with Elise's quiet steel, saying I pitied him, not hated, for he saw our home as an ATM for his fleeting fame, not the vault of a life's labor. The forgery commissioned in 2020 as insurance against exactly this betrayal, and when Liam leaped up screaming from the defense table that I was a liar, that I'd hated him since day one, killed his future, his brand, his everything for a stupid broken clock that wasn't even real, the judge's gavel cracked like a hammer on gong, order in the court, but the jury had seen, their faces etched with the sorrow of recognition, returning guilty on 82 counts of grand larceny, wire fraud, elder exploitation, and conspiracy after 5 hours of deliberation that felt like an eternity of slow ticks. Sentence, 16 years at FMC Devons, no parole for the first 8, $5.8 million in restitution to be paid from whatever digital ashes his empire left. Liam's sobs echoing as marshals led him away, his final glare a fractured balance wheel of rage and regret that lingered in the air like a dissonant repeater. In the quiet aftermath, as winter yielded to a tentative spring that painted Beacon Hill in hesitant greens, the real Breguet subscription, serial 1698 BM12, sold anonymously through Sotheby's Geneva for $12.7 million to a consortium of Swiss museums who vowed to tour it through technical schools worldwide, the proceeds seeding the Vincent Moreau Horology Scholarship, $200,000 annually for orphans scattered across New England, funding apprenticeships in local, tools for tiny hands that trembled like mine once did, lessons in regulating balance wheels to atomic precision and voicing escapements to sing, a legacy that bloomed where grief had barren soil. The workshop, once a tomb of unfinished work, transformed into a free horology school under the auspices of the MFA, its benches now alive with the scuffle of small feet and the tentative clicks of learner keys, children from South Boston and Roxbury filing in after school to wind student clocks I built from scraps of brass salvaged from Elise's rejects, their laughter a counterpoint to the silence she left, high notes piercing the low hum of sorrow that had settled in my bones. I taught when I could, my arthritic fingers demonstrating the proper angle for a palette fork, the way to oil a jewel without waste, telling stories of Elise's hands on the Breguet, how she'd hum Debussy while polishing dials, her eyes distant with the music only she heard, and in those moments, the house ticked again, the air lighter, the ghosts less lonely. Liam wrote from Devon's 8 months in, his letter smudged with what might have been tears or prison ink, confessing that he hears silence now in the cell block's clamor and it's louder than any stream, that he envied the time I guarded, that his flips were frantic attempts to fill the void Julian's death left in him, but I don't reply, for some mechanisms can't be repaired with words, only felt in the vibration of gears long after the key lifts. Instead, I burn the letter unopened in the workshop sink. Liam's sobs echoing as marshals led him away, his final glare a fractured balance wheel of rage and regret that lingered in the air like a dissonant repeater. The flames curling the paper like a mainspring under heat, a final release. Every night, as the sun dips behind the river and the city lights flicker on like hesitant repeaters, I climb the attic stairs, slowly, one creak at a time, and sit with the real Breguet in my lap, its curves familiar as Elise's shoulder, winding the key until the hands reach 317, letting one pure chime linger in the dust-moated air like her hand in mine that final afternoon, like love that never stops ticking into silence, like the time that waits patiently in the space between heartbeats for someone quiet enough, broken enough, to finally hear it, to let it fill the vast, aching hull of a life half-wound.